I hadn't touched a football my entire rehab because I was actually kind of bitter towards it. Yeah. And here I am in this military center. And the first thing the military guy did, again, I couldn't stand, was go get a football. It changed everything.
So I went to this like super nerdy thing. It was, Alex, I told you about it, which was the Acquired podcast did a live show at Chase Center. Okay. Which is funny. Like, I mean, there was 8,000 people there.
No way.
8,000 people, Shane. 8,000 people. Now, I think to be fair, like those guys are amazing and, you know, their show is awesome. But I mean, I think the reason there were 8,000 people there was they had Mark Zuckerberg as, you know, their guest. Even still, like, you know, attending a live session of a podcast, it's like, you know, different. But dude, Mark Zuckerberg was very good. Okay. He was very, very, very good. But he said a couple of things that actually made me think. I went with Mike D. Okay. And Shane, you'll appreciate this. I did lean over to him and be like, you know, I told him he's got to come on the podcast and he's ready to go too. So he's going to join us.
Mike D has interests outside of basketball?
No, he is the one who invited me to this, you know, surprisingly enough.
Such a Valley guy. He's such a Valley guy now.
Zuckerberg said this thing that was very, very, very interesting. And I'm trying to figure out how it applies in outside of your life. They were sort of like, what is Facebook? Is it a social media company, or what is Meta? Is it a social media company? Like, what is it that makes you guys who you are? And he's like, look, our entire goal is to be a technology company that learns faster than anybody else. That's it. Like what we want to learn faster than anybody else. And if we learn faster than everybody else, we will be fine over a long period of time. And it was too, like, you couldn't like have the deep conversation. But I asked Mike, I was like, does that work in sports to like learn faster than everybody else and to have that be a differentiator? Because like the reason I was thinking about it is the feedback loop in business, like you can really change a lot quickly. But in sports, like, can you learn something and make changes fast enough in order to actually have it work? Because like your personnel is more fixed. There's just like, in business, you can be pretty nimble. And so I was interested in like, could that approach work outside of a tech company? And so anyway, that was what I was thinking about.
Yes. And I think that's the only way you have sustained success. You're looking at a perfect example of this. I mean, I literally had the best year in my career and got sent packing, right? Like you don't wait. You don't, and I mean that, like, you don't wait for the downfall. Like, look at how many years did the New England Patriots send away an iconic franchise player at the end of their career, right? And they didn't sign them to that last big contract when they're aging, right? How many times did Bill Belichick draft a quarterback looking for the, you know, Tom's replacement? And I think the great coaches, like, it just isn't it. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're always doing this. And even from it's happening on a personnel side, I think, but then even from a philosophical standpoint, like Andy Reid, when he evaluates players in the spring, so like when he's evaluating the next crop of rookies, and I think in that too, Ravi, like in sports, you obviously always are having like the next class come in, right?
Yep.
Like
there's like a more
class,
natural evolution.
It's kind of built into the process. Like you're always hiring every year, you know?
Yeah.
And so, and if they're better and cheaper, like, you know, like they're obviously pushing out the older, more expensive, you know, counterpart. But philosophically, you know, Andy, when he watches these players and he's evaluating them, this is in the springtime. So this is like combine, you know, the NFL Super Bowl's already happened and it's prior to the draft. And so he's evaluating all the position groups. And while he's doing that, he literally in his office, one entire wall is just whiteboard. It's, you know, it's a big office. He overlooks the practice fields, like it's, you know, as it should be, a big giant head coach's office. So one whole wall is just whiteboard, and all he does, it's crazy. Like, so when he's evaluating QBs or running backs, when he sees a cool concept, he puts it on the board.
What do you mean a cool concept?
So like just an offensive philosophy, right? Because like he could be watching one AA teams, right? Division II teams. Right,
not just these aren't players. Yeah.
Not just he's not watching. These are college guys, and a lot of them obscure college. Right, you're not just watching the SEC and the Big Ten, and so he'd be watching. And hey, North Dakota State, I mean, I literally remember this. Like we took plays from, I think, North Dakota State. Like he'd be watching, like, hey, they run this really cool. They run these 3 plays out of this formation that are all really cool and they tie into each other.
Well,
And
Alex,
that's,
I think football lends itself way more to innovation than basketball does. I would say no, Ravi, not in basketball. In basketball, it's not about learning the fastest because the game evolves very slowly. It evolves, but it evolves very slowly. So, like, Alex, you know better than I do, but like, remember when teams couldn't stop the Wildcat?
yes.
You know, like how novel it was to put a running back at quarterback, and you hand the ball to him, and he runs, and he gashes you for 6 yards every single time, right? And so, like, you had to learn really fast, either like, how do we stop this, or like, hey, we need to really fast. We need to put this in our playbook. You know, you think about like the rise of the Tampa Two. Okay, like when Tampa was doing it with Tony Dungy's defense, like no one could solve it. Like it was a revolutionary defense, so like everyone rushed to either solve the Tampa Two or adopt the Tampa Two.
Can you guys give like the quick overview of the Tampa Two? I'm trying to speak on behalf of the listeners here, who might not be as versed in the Tampa Two.
Well, yeah, it derived in, believe it or not, Tampa Bay. And Monty Kiffin was the originator. This is Lane Kiffin's dad, Hall of Fame defensive coordinator. And yeah, it was kind of a game-changing defense in the sense that they kind of broke the mold, that it was this new form. It was cover 2 that really is formed in cover 3, but like not to dive into the minutia. But yeah, and in some ways, there's probably like a cyclical nature to some of these changes. But like, we've seen RPO becomes in fad, and then that spreads. Right. And I think maybe the point is if you're on the leading edge of that, you're ahead of it. But if you're on the back end, right, like you're on the cusp of like the decline of these things, right? Because then the next wave is already coming.
Yeah, like the teams that don't run motion now and don't run, 3 receiver sets and don't spread people out, are always at the bottom of the league in offense, right? So it's not a secret that like the best imitate. And they're copying the Shanahans and the McDaniels and the best offensive minds, right?
I mean, how about every company just sticking AI on the back of their name because it's like the hot topic? Like, I mean, fucking Callaway stuck AI on the back of their name. Totally. Like, you're a golf company.
I saw a toothbrush the other day that said it had AI in it, and it's like, what? One of the things that we're doing right now at Sequoia is that one of our partners had this good line, which is like, if this company didn't say AI anywhere in it, would we have any interest in this company whatsoever? And it's like a good thought exercise of like, let's not just like fall privy to that. I do think though, Shane, on your point of like, so Alex is like learning fast, learning quicker, huge deal. In basketball, you said not. Why do you think it's not in basketball? Is it because it's more individual? Is it because it's a smaller team? What is it that makes it not as susceptible to like learning faster?
Yeah, the salary cap. You have a lot of sunk costs in basketball that you don't have in football. Honestly, like with football, you could turn over your roster pretty quickly and adapt an entirely new strategy. Like we don't want run stopping linebackers. We're going to cut them all or get rid of them and bring in, pass defending linebackers, right? Because you can. In basketball, you have guys that have, $200 million contracts and, okay, we're going to go to a low post offense now. If you don't have the personnel, it's a slow burn. All right. And even from like a game style play, if you look at the rise of the 3-point shot, which is like by every metric, like if you don't make threes, you don't win. Yeah. How long it took for every team to be like, yeah, we probably should shoot more threes. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And even then there's like a limit to where coaches and players even feel comfortable when actually the right answer is you shoot a 3-point shot every single time you can. And that's the rigorous answer that is unrefutable, right? And so innovation is much, much slower in basketball. Now people will take concepts, but like in a playoff series, you play a team in a 7-game series, like what worked in game 1 is done. The rest of the series, done. It's done. The coaches say, okay, we're not going to play it this way. We're taking this play out of the game. You got to score somewhere else, right? So by game 7, like in a long series, like there are no secrets. Everything's changed. And so, yes, you have to learn, but like assume everything is getting taken away.
But maybe not year to year, but don't you think like even the 3-point shooting phenomenon, the small ball, the whole like wide open West Coast, like let's just get more possessions and put up more shots, right? Like don't you think these things have changed basketball over the years?
They have.
I agree it's not year to year, but
how did they come to be? How did the Miami Heat get to small ball? As Shane Battier is the starting power forward. Chris Bosh got hurt, and they had no backup power forward. It wasn't like Eric Spoelstra was sitting up at night being like, I had this great innovation in basketball. It's going to change the way that we play modern basketball. I really want to put Battier at the 4. No! He said, oh, shit, we don't have a backup 4. Shane, you used to play power forward. Can you play power forward? I said, yeah, coach, I'm in. And we win 2 championships, right? David Lee for the Golden State Warriors, was the starting center. Draymond couldn't see the floor. David Lee goes down. Steve Kerr's like, oh, shit, what do I do? Draymond, go play center. And, like, a dynasty is born, right? So, like, let's not give too much credit to people for doing game-changing things when it comes out of necessity and, like, oh, shit, what do we do next, right?
Yeah, but that doesn't take away the premise that it did take over the league, right? Like, yeah,
that's different from what Zuckerberg's talking about, though, don't you think?
No, well, they're more intentional about it. My point is, though, do you really think that, okay, the winning, you just said it, the winning formula in the NBA right now is put up a 3, right? 3 threes. You've talked about, like, the mid-range is the worst percentage shot. Do you actually think that that's going to be the same winning formula 10 years from now?
It will depend. It will depend on the evolution of the players. See, in basketball, like, it's a little bit different too, because now you have these unicorns that are changing the game in a different way, not out of innovation, just because there are 7'4" people walking around.
Well, why is that sports innovation? That is innovation.
That's not like Adam Silver and saying, "Hey, let's find these 7'4" guys that can move and shoot threes, and let's put them in the league." No, it's just an evolution of just like people are exposed to basketball and they grow these crazy skill sets, and they're freaks, literally like 1 in a billion type people, and they're all in the NBA now. And so I wouldn't say, I think that's different than what Zuckerberg's talking about, where Zuckerberg is actively looking for ways to disrupt use technology to disrupt.
I don't even think he's talking about literally he's just saying, like, there's these incumbents, these legacy companies that so many of them, right, for a while are on the up and to the right, and then at some point, plateau out and then decline, right? And they have a life cycle, like literally they have a life cycle, and it's through however many markets, and obviously depending on changes in technology or whatever, the next 7'4" guy comes around may take them out, so to speak. But for him, it's to not be blockbuster, right? Like, just keep your head up. You just keep your head up and eyes open, and let's not be fucking ignorant of this stuff. And that when AI comes around, we better get on this freaking train and not fight it, right? Like, when cloud services come around and we're blockbuster, we don't just fucking sit on our hands because, like, we're making money, right? Like, that's the point. And so I know it's different in basketball in the sense that you are right. Like, it's these physically talented guys, but, like, listen, when Draymond changes the game in a small ball, if you're playing him, dude, we better adjust, right? Like, we better either get with the program or same thing. Like, we're going to get rolled over.
But I think that the most interesting thing I took from what you said, Shane, was sort of like the structure of the team limiting the ability to implement the learnings, right? Like, and the idea that you can turn over a football roster in a hurry versus you can't really turn over a basketball roster as quickly. That's pretty interesting, right? Because it's like, how quickly can you implement your learnings? If you decide that you want to go small ball and you don't have the personnel, right? Like, your ability to turn your team into a small ball team is actually difficult in basketball, whereas it's easier with non-guaranteed contracts, whatever, in football. I think the thing that I took from Zuck, which I totally agree with you, Alex, it's like, listen, like, we are going to face, he basically takes a long time horizon of, like, we're going to be running this company for 20, 30, 40 years. Things are going to change a lot over that 20, 30, 40 year period. And we can implement that, any adjustment, in a hurry. Right. And so what's fascinating on, like, structure is what he did was he created a structure where he gets to make all the decisions. He controls the company. Like, he is the founder. He has all of the super voting. And so literally what he said, he's like, in 2006, Yahoo tried to buy Facebook for $1 billion, and he didn't want to sell. He said the entire management team wanted to sell, and the entire board wanted him to sell, and he didn't want to do it. Okay. So he was able to fight his way out, but he's like, the board tried to fire me, in that situation. And he's like, and then the entire management team left within the next year. And he was like, I don't want to be in a situation again where I could, have that happen. And I want to be able to build what we want to build. So he changed all the governance. But effectively, what it created was, you think about what could limit his ability to make the changes he wants, it would be investor pressure. Because if an investor has shorter term time horizons, like a public market investor, they could say, we don't want you to build this stuff. And now that he has all the decision making authority, what the investors can do is say, your stock's going to be worth less. That's what they can say, right? We will pay less for your stock, but they can't kick him out. And I think that what he created was the ability to make changes that he wanted. But I just thought it was interesting. The other thing he said was, in order to be a real technology company, we need a reasonable portion of our execs to be technologists, like, real technical people. And we need a reasonable portion of our board to be that way. And so anyway, I just go back, Alex, to like, the idea that tech companies and football teams have more in common because their ability to make changes quickly. That was crazy. Like, I did not think about that.
Well, like that makes me even think, because like, listen, so the specialized technologists that he's talking about keeping around him, they have a shelf life.
Yeah.
Right. Like they only have a specific shelf life. And I think that's kind of what I get to, like, again, with like Andy Reid. He's been the guy that's like shuttled, these teams for 40 years, and he's the only consistent.
Right.
He is the only
around him.
consistent.
Yeah.
And it is constantly moving around him. Younger guys, newer guys, fresher guys, like constantly. And he controls that.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. Like, that just is constant. Like, the guy's traded away how many starting quarterbacks over the years. Like, and he does it. And he's got
who else has he traded?
Oh, McNabb and Kevin Cobb and and that's the nature of it, right? And if you don't subscribe to that, you'll never stay on that leading edge.
What are constraints to being able to pivot quickly in the tech world and the business world? I talked about basketball being, basically the roster construction is the biggest constraint. What are some of the constraints that you see? And how are you judging that? Because look, your business is entirely now. Like, how are you going to pivot? Like, you have a great idea, but like, it's not the final the product you're going to make here. So like, what are the big constraints that you see every single day?
Yeah. The first one that comes to mind is, if you have a good business, right, that's like paying the bills and creating all your profits, you think about how you're valued. Let's just assume you're a public company. You're valued as a multiple of your profits, right? And so usually one big problem that people have is like, gosh, my legacy business is what creates all the value for my company, right? And if I stop doing that, or I start like taking good resources or people away from that, my company is going to be worth a lot less as I make the change. So first thing is, people are trying, one constraint some people use is, well, I don't really want to disrupt the market cap of the company. And that is a deathly constraint, right? Because all of a sudden you limit your ability to make any change that hurts the profitability of like the legacy enterprise. So that's one that really hurts people. The second is actually quite human, which is that like people have egos around something they've said in the past. Well, on this last earnings call, I said we were okay, right? Now I have to go and say something different. It's actually quite hard for people to like walk back points of view, where one of the most powerful things that, I don't remember who said it, but some like big time tech leader was like, when the facts change, my opinion changes. Just kind of being somebody who's willing to change is a huge advantage. Like, that's another thing. The third constraint is, people have loyalty to people. Like I was just thinking about what Alex just said about trading these quarterbacks, and presumably there's a good relationship with the head coach and the quarterback, right?
Yes.
It's hard to look somebody in the face and trade them. It's hard to look somebody in the face who you've worked with for a long time and fire them.
Yep, it's rare.
Right. And it's super rare. And I think that Andy Reid is an amazing example of like, you still like him and respect him and trust him and believe in him despite him trading you. It's like a really hard human thing to do, right? And I think that, to his credit, he's managed to maintain this relationship with you. But I think leadership-wise, Shane, a lot of these folks, like these are folks that got him there and they've ridden together with, and it's almost like this nostalgia is important. And then I guess the last thing I would say is, I think people underestimate how quickly the change is happening. What they want to do is they want to make the change without the pain. And usually you got to take some pain. You know what I'm saying? They're like, oh, yeah, cool. Go, no, we're going to keep our legacy business. It's a little bit like, you know, these teams that'll be like, oh, we have the 2-track system. We have our current team and we're going to be good. And then we're rising up this other guy and it's going to work perfectly and we're going to transition. And it's like, that ain't how it works. But the companies do the same thing, which is like, we're going to have a bridge. And it's like, no, dude, there ain't no bridge. You got to jump from one cliff to the other and you almost have to end it early. One of the more interesting things I've ever heard was that the Warriors 22 championship that they got, you know what I'm saying? Like there were people that would have traded Steph, the most like tough people would have traded Steph probably after like was it the 19 championship or 18 when he still had like many years left, and they would have given up the 22 championship in order to like have a chance for more in the future. But Alex, you were going to say something.
No, I was going to say like the business example of this that like for sure comes to mind for me is Dan Rose, like buddy of mine who worked at Amazon, and his story at Amazon is literally, this is early days Amazon, and like the only product that is like profitable is selling books.
Oh, by the way, Alex, we should get Dan Rose as a guest. Yeah, he should definitely come on. He would be great.
Yeah, it's just books. Yeah, like Shane. So that like the only thing they're doing that makes any money is selling books. But obviously, Bezos has had this idea from the beginning that it's going to be, you know, everything. And so here's their number one, like to Ravi's point, like this is the only thing that could have a multiple because nothing else does. And yet he puts Dan Rose down this track and puts him in charge of like, go build the Kindle, right? Nobody's made an e-reader to this point that's worth a shit, but they think that this is the future of reading and that paper books are dying. He has to go build this. So you're building a product that is going to kill your number one revenue item, like literally. Like, so you're, to Ravi's point of like ending it early, like and being intentional, like, hey, we're going to put all this money and manpower down this effort to invent the very thing that's going to eliminate our most profitable like line item. You know, like it just is insane to think about.
I understand what did head of books think about that? You wonder, you know, when that mandate.
I guess we'll have to ask Dan if he even knew or she.
But I think that's such a good example, which is like, you know, and Clay Christensen literally wrote a book on this, The Innovator's Dilemma. And it's what you just described as like, this is the classic issue that a company has. And the thing that Bezos said that was so smart, and this is what great CEOs say, they're effectively have this point of view of, we're going to get disrupted. It's going to happen. The only question is whether we do it to ourselves or whether someone else does it. But like they describe the inevitability of like, we can't stop the reality of what's going to happen in the world, but we can either be the ones to bring it in or we can be the ones to be impacted by it. And I think that mindset is like so critical and valuable and important.
Don't you think that's what set Zuckerberg apart? Right. I mean, like Facebook, like again, to go back to the arc of Facebook, like but he's pivoted, right? Like, and he took when he bought Instagram and he bought WhatsApp and they've like continued, obviously now they're going down the AI path and he's taken all these risks that I think, you know, a lot of MBAs would have said, or, you know, or classic CFOs would have said, it's crazy, right? Like, why aren't we maximizing profit from this thing? And it's the only things that they're still around. And even the larger rebranding of Meta, right? That we're a bigger deal. We're a technology company.
Oh, dude, like he went through it yesterday. I mean, you take this, it's nuts. Started the company in 2004, right? First, like existential set of competitors are Friendster and MySpace. Way bigger. Everyone's like, you're going to lose to them. Cool. Then Google, who has like the biggest, baddest company in the space, tries to create Google Plus, like a social network, right? He goes through, then it comes along, Instagram's going to kill you. Snapchat's going to kill you, right? TikTok's going to kill you. You know, you can just keep going. Apple changing the rules on the way you put ads out, that's going to kill you. You know, AI is going to kill you. He just keeps going. But to your point on like what makes him so unique is I think this, like, he's like fiercely competitive. He's also like not wed to something he said or did in the past, right? Like one of the things people say about Facebook is they're like willing to implement other people's features. Like when Snapchat created stories, everybody was using stories. Well, some companies would be like, well, we didn't make stories. We've got to make our own version. We have to create something else. This dude's like, we'll just make a better version of that ourselves. Like, okay, cool. We just learned in the market that this is what people want. Yeah, we didn't create it. We'll create a better version. sometimes you ask about constraints. Shane, I think that he probably took a bunch of questions in all hands of like, aren't we just like copying what the other guy did? And he's like, yeah, we learned that's what users want. And so we're going to give them a better version. Like some people's egos get in the way of like, no, I don't want to build what somebody else built. And like this dude is, I mean, it's even crazy. Like their market cap went down by 80%. Like Mark Zuckerberg is 40 years old. He's probably worth like $100 billion. Okay. The idea that he's like not like on a beach somewhere just hanging out and instead is like grinding while like pushing this thing forward is a testament to it in itself. Like he's just going. He's talking about 20 years from now. He's been doing it for 21 years and he's still talking about the next 20.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about the like the pushback on this too, right? Like it was his board at one point. Well, now it's public equities. It's these hedge funders that are like, you know what I'm saying? Like, why aren't you maximizing profits?
Yeah, and then I think what he has is the benefit, and this is I think very different in sports. He has the benefit of duration, right? Like he can say, I'm thinking about this for longer than 3 months, than 6 months, than 12 months. I'm thinking about it for 10 years. And because he controls the company and because he's earned it, he gets to take a much longer view, you know? But like, if you have to show a result in 3 months, right? It's actually pretty hard to make like pretty significant changes too, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? Because you're like, dude, like, what am I going to do? My legacy product, like, I mean, you know?
How far was your vision at Instacart? You know, I mean, yeah, you faced the precipice. So yeah, like what you know now compared to what you knew when you were going through it, man, you're just trying to survive. You're just trying to get.
And this is what it's such an interesting question, Shane, because I actually like I have like really diverging opinions on this.
Yeah,
I actually think many startups they use long term as a euphemism to just not actually be desperate and do the work in the short term. Do you see what I'm saying? Like they use it as an excuse to like.
How so?
So what I mean by that is like, let's say I'm kind of like our product's not working, right? Or our business isn't working. And it's like, well, don't worry, because in the long term, like, you know, it's all going to work out. And it sort of like reduces the urgency of getting stuff done now. So you have to pair like the thing that Zuckerberg does, if you're going to do it, you have to pair like long-term ambition with short-term urgency, right? Like you if you don't have the short-term urgency, you're screwed because you will lose, right? So I think he does that really well. To your point, Shane, I think a bunch of startups also assume that they'll exist in 3 years. And I actually think the default is that they won't. And so I actually think, again, you need this like belief that it's like not going to work. It's almost this belief of like, I have to behave like it's not going to work, but I have to believe it is going to work. You know, like there's like this tension that comes with that. The thing I was thinking about, Alex, though, for like Andy, does he feel like when he got the Kansas City job or when he got the Eagles job, did he feel like he had time? Did he feel like he had trust to like implement a vision over a 5 or 10 year period? Like someone who's had success, do they believe that they have some rope, or does he still believe it's like year by year he's being evaluated?
Yeah, no, you have a couple years, maybe. Like that's the reality in pro football, at least right now. Like, you know, hey, he signed a 4-year contract or a 5-year contract. So you probably have 2 or 3, maybe, you know, to have like culture change. Like, I mean, mind you, when he took over, you're usually taking over a loser, you know, so there usually is a little bit of leash. But no, it's compartmentalizing those two things you exactly talked about, right? Like there is a win now mentality and doing everything we can to have success, like win today. And at the same time, you know, you are evaluating for longer term. And that's probably more of the personnel side, like from a sports standpoint, right? Like
we're all bad at long-term planning. That's a feature, not a bug of being a human being. It is, you know, we do not understand large numbers. We do not understand long-term ramifications. We don't understand compound growth. We don't understand all those. We're very, very poor. And it takes a true innovator and someone with huge cojones to take
totally. Yeah.
But Shane, do you think you personally, like this is interesting to me, do you think you personally are bad at long-term planning? And
Yes.
it's don't be humble, but like,
Yes.
Are you really like, I would have thought you're somebody who like I think I'm good at long-term planning.
No, look, man plan, God laughs, right? That's my philosophy. Man plan, God laughs, right? And a good buddy of mine, Jason Aquino, who I'm an advisor for.
Oh yeah, hole in one at the Commissioner's Cup last year.
Yep,
We know Jason.
Exactly. And Jason, he cut his teeth working in the Department of Defense, and his sole job was to look at, the nuclear capabilities of Russia 30 years from now. And so you're talking about taking a world view, and so in discussing things with him, like he wants to get into business. And so, we had this conversation, Ravi, with Jason. Like,
I remember
what type of people in business have a really, really long term. U.S. governments have a long term view on the world, but like, how many businesses, how many people have an investing a business mindset besides Zuck? Longer than 3-4 years, maybe.
Yeah.
Right. To really gain macro advantages of changing landscapes in 10 years from now.
Yeah, it's interesting because I was actually thinking more on the personal side. On the business side, I basically agree with you. On the personal side, I was thinking about it as like, I think there's lots of people say this, but I definitely remember Fiji saying it as Instacart CEO of like, stubborn on the vision, flexible on the details, right? Of like, stubborn on what it's got to be in the long term, but flexible on how you implement it. I was thinking about that. The reason I was thinking about the long term side and you being good at it was like, I feel like you have some vision for what you want your family life to be like in 20 years. Like you want your kids to love you guys and be productive adults, and you want you and Heidi to have a good marriage. And I do feel like you're like doing stuff to promote that. I think we're all hopefully trying to do stuff to promote that. On the professional side, I totally agree with you. It's like very, very, very hard to like have that, like how do you predict what's going to happen in 20 years?
Ravi and I run a podcast, Richard Deitch's podcast this morning, and we got that question. Well, what is the ultimate goal of Blue Guys? And I'm like, I don't know. I hope we film next week. And my answer, Alex, was what's your ultimate goal, and what do you want to do? And I said, eventually, I hope we're so successful that we create glue guy islands, kind of like Richard Branson's Branson Island, and we host these multimillionaire CEOs to retreats that want to learn from us on how to be the common glue guy or glue gal, and we change the world through our conferences. But I said, no, Richard, we just want to be able to figure out the Riverside for next week.
But don't you think, okay, on that exact note, I mean, clearly here we are now. Like, don't you think we should be having both conversations?
Yeah. I mean,
let's do it.
What would we? But you think,
people listening, not us.
Yeah.
Don't you think we're missing the ball if we're not?
Okay, so Alex, here's a question for you. Okay, take it back to the rehab for real. Like, this is a
great example,
right? Like, okay, you're in the hospital. You decide you want to keep your leg.
And I decided to document it too, all at the same time, which was like important to know.
Great.
So there's fucking cameras documenting this, and I'm laying in a wheelchair.
Yes.
Or sorry, in a hospital bed. Yeah.
So okay. So this is to me like perfect one of like, okay, is the point there? I need to, play football again, and that's my long-term vision, or is the point there like, dude, no, I need to fucking be able to like, move my leg tomorrow one more inch. Like,
I'm so glad you brought this up because actually it's a great fucking example. And I say this, like when people ask me about my leg all the time, this is what I talk about. So no, there's like stages to all this, right? Like I was in a hospital bed and they were like most of the doctors in the room said I should cut my leg off.
Except for the Indian
reality, except for the, yep. Shout out to Vinny.
Shout out. Vinny.
Yeah. So I decided to keep my leg, and I'm going down this road. And again, important to note, like I documented, like I'm a very private person. I feel like I always have been, especially when I was playing. Like, you lead such a public life. Like I liked having my privacy. So it was definitely out of character for me and alarming, and again, it looked like it was going to be so bad, like the outcomes. And so I'm heading down this road, and I've talked about it, like a pity party for a long time. Like I'm wallowing. I'm not thinking, my life's over, as I know it. And then I talked about like the chance I got to go down to the CFI, the Center for the Intrepid. This is the military rehab place, and again, it was just changed my life, right? And like people like were actually moving forward, and that is the first place I said out loud. This was like it's like 5 months after my break again, and I still can't even stand on my leg. I cannot put my leg down on the ground. I have a steel cage keeping it together. And I say out loud that I want to play football again, professional football. It's fucking insane. And I'm positive that if I did not say that out loud with a camera capturing it, I never would have done it.
Oh, that's interesting.
I never would have done it. That's like without a doubt. If I did not verbalize it and that it was documented and I said it in front of a bunch of people, like, this is what I want to go do. Now, I've told you guys, like, I didn't actually think I would ever even get there. Like, I thought, like, it wasn't in the card for me. That's besides the point. The fact that I said it and put it out there and it was a goal, a very long-term goal, right? Years. I knew it then, years. If it was going to ever happen, it was going to be years away, was so important in the process. And I think it is for goal setting and like things. Now, I also think it was very important that I was okay with failure. Like I talked about that.
Say, can we go deeper into the, like, why does it matter that you say it? Why does it matter that other people hear it? Like, is it all good things? Is that all?
Yeah.
Good? Like,
no, for sure.
Matter, like, you know,
it actually only mattered to me that I fucking said it, and that like what, like it was sitting there, and I would put it like on a back burner, so to speak.
Yeah.
Like it was sitting there, back burner. Like this is what I'm going to go do. I want to go do this. This is the goal. This is the why. Right. And I'd say this all the time. That next day, I didn't wake up thinking about playing quarterback. Yeah. That's fucking stupid. I couldn't even stand. But like, no. So my daily focus, though, were on very attainable little things.
Yeah.
Like very small little goals. Like I got to be able to stand on my leg, right? Like I got to be able to put my foot down. And I did everything in my power to get strong enough to do that. And then when I did that, right, like it was all a what's next mentality, right? So I did it, for sure, a little celebration, woohoo. And then, okay, well, what's next? Now I got to take a baby step. I got to be able to shift my weight, right? Like that. And then I worked my ass off for weeks on that next step. And then when I did that, like, so again, the big goal, the long-term aspirations of Glue Guys was out there, right? Like again, it was on the fucking wall. Again, I wrote it on the whiteboard. It was out there, but my daily focus wasn't on that.
Yeah.
Again, like on the whole, like I love the whole idea of being stubborn on your long-term goals, but like flexible in the short term. Like then I did everything in my power on that next step. And I love like the old analogy of like, when you're in the middle of the deep, dark woods, like you don't necessarily have to be able to see out of the woods. You just need to be able to see your next step.
Yeah.
Right. And then like, that's how you should be living anyway. Right. Like to Shane, you always talk about the inputs, right? Like that's what was important. So I wasn't focused daily on these long-term external things. It was the small things, but I think the two, I had to have both. Like it wouldn't have happened without either of them.
The thing that you said in there, which I liked, was like, it's not that you said it for other people, it's that you said it for you. It's like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, it's for me, right? And I think is that like a self-respect thing? Like, what is it that, like, why does it matter so much that you said it? Because like, I actually feel this sometimes, like you actually, like, sometimes you avoid saying something that you want because you don't want to be accountable for it yourself, right?
Totally,
and so sure. I'm actually like super interested in that of like, well, what the hell? Yeah. Like, why did it matter so much that you said it,
Yeah, because you're putting yourself out there.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's even like fucking launching this podcast, right? Like sure, it's like, it launches. It's like, it's scary. Right. What if it fails, right? Yeah. Like what if my friends see me fail?
Totally.
What am I going to say?
Totally.
Like that's where the anxiety comes from. Like that, like so all of a sudden I had said this, people knew that I was trying for this. What if I fucking fail? Right? Like that's really where all this anxiety comes from. And so I think important though, that when I did say it, yeah, like to me, like I put this out there. This is a goal of mine. Like there is a bar that I'm going to hold myself accountable to, but that's oftentimes the fear that we don't talk about these things so that it's so easy just to like slip away. Right. Like, if it's not going well, I'll just sink away and like fucking meander to something else.
One of my favorite books I try to read every year, The Power of Persuasion, Robert Cialdini. This was like the original marketing book and understanding, human behavioral psychology. And it's the consistency principle. All right. We as humans all want to be consistent with what we say. and that's why every marketer, they get you on the phone, hit you up. Hey, do you have a minute to talk? And if you say yes, they got you. They got you. Right. No, so never say yes. If you have a minute, never say yes, because you've just like yourself, you put it out to the world that, yes, I do have a minute. Well, I can't hang up because I've already said I have a minute. And people will actually take on pain and stress just to be consistent with their word. So like, it's a super powerful tool, when other people have heard you document, yes, I commit to this. And, so if you're ever trying to get your kids to do something or get your wife to do something way in the future, just get them to say yes. All right. They're going to have a hard time saying no when the time comes. It's the oldest psychology trick by marketers in the book.
That's interesting. And then he's doing it for himself. He's using it on himself.
Yeah. So you can use it for good. Use it for good. That was brilliant. You were your own accountability buddy.
I think the failure thing is also interesting. I have it. Everyone has it. But it is this big lesson too of just like reminding yourself that like maybe yours was different, Alex. I don't know, but in general, like nobody cares if you fail, and we all think everybody cares.
Totally.
But like it's like one of my friends used to say like the only person who cares what you're doing at 12 o'clock on a Tuesday is you. Nobody else cares. There is no like overwhelming narrative, any of this stuff, right? But we all like work ourselves into a frenzy on it, and so. But going back, I do think that. Yeah, like there is this concept in business of this, I don't like the acronym, but it's like a BHAG, the big, hairy, audacious goal. But like you have to have something that you're shooting for. I think, Shane, my view, just to going back to your question on like, for me, how I think about it, I think you have to believe the race is worth running and you have to communicate what it is that happens if you win. But I do think then you have to like, really be step by step and ferocious in there. The funny enough, I think
your favorite thing, Ravi, to say is you got to know the game you're playing.
Hell yeah. And you got to keep the main thing. You got to like, do that. But I think that, Bezos, look, to be fair, this company I think is losing to SpaceX, or it is losing to SpaceX. But I always liked the way that Bezos's Blue Origin, his space company, by the way, it's so crazy that we're like multiple space companies now that we're the billionaires have, but they have this, like their saying is like this Latin words for step by step ferociously. And I think that's like the right way you have to do anything. You have to do it step by step. You have to do it ferociously. Right. And ideally it has to lead you to something a mission that matters,
Totally. I think that you're speaking to like the motivation of it.
Yeah.
Ravi. And like, so again, going back to like, just to take it back one more time, when you were talking about me, like that's where like it wasn't about football for me. Football was like a vehicle to get the rest of my life back, physically, and so it really like that's why it was worth the race, right?
Dude,
like that was the only reason.
Yeah. It's like I actually want to like be able to run around with my kids.
Yes,
and the only way I can shoot for that is if I set the bar so high that I'm going to play professional football again.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's exactly. So like the why was that. And then I've obviously spoken to you guys about, well, then, oh, fuck, when it actually like I got there.
Yeah.
That's why I was like so resistant to like, well, do I really want to even?
I'm going to risk, I'm going to risk the why that I
have. Like, exactly. Yeah. I achieved it.
Yeah.
And then I'm still going to follow through. Like, that's what, like at the end of the road was so hard for me at the very end was that exact like problem. Like I had gotten it back, but I was still going to follow through with it and risk it again.
That's very unique, Alex. I would not have had those aspirations. I would have just been, hey, get me back to just.
But so Shane,
you're going to like optimize here.
No, and I think there was like some psychology in it, Shane. Like, so they do this, and I don't even know if I mentioned this story. Like down at the rehab place, the military rehab place, there were a bunch of guys with lower leg injuries. Like I've told you, that's what they specialize in. And so as you're coming back, like one of the first things is, again, just to stand, right? Like just stand on your leg, like put weight on it. And so, and this is documented, like guys will you're standing in the rehab center, right? There's a PT working with you and it's like, put your leg down. How long can you stand until you can't anymore? Right? Like I'm talking like, so guys will stand and be like, fuck, he can only stand, literally 22 seconds on his leg, right? It's that unbearable. They'll take those military guys and go put them up. They have a digital gun range, a digital one. So these are like real guns, but they don't shoot real bullets. They're lasers. And so they'll go take him up to the gun range. And again, these are like obviously military guys. End up there, it's a distraction thing. They'll fucking stand for like 5 minutes. Right.
Oh,
and
wow.
And for me, that mechanism was a football. Yeah. Like I hadn't touched a football my entire rehab because I was actually kind of bitter towards it. Yeah. And here I am in this military center. And the first thing the military guy did, again, I couldn't stand, was go get a football.
Yeah.
And he put a football in my hands.
This is Johnny, right?
Yeah. Johnny Owens. And it's like brilliant. Like I'll never, like it was, and from there on out, I did rehab with a football in my hands, Shane. And like I equate it to you and like basketball. Like, yeah, you want to get your life back, but like you've played basketball your whole life. Like, so to go out and like, if you were in that miserable state and then just to go shoot some hoops, like the mental escape that provided, you know what I'm saying? Like that's what fed that mentality, right? Like it energized me so much that when I would do a rehab with a football in my hands, like it changed everything. And so for me, it wasn't planned. It was a little bit out of, it's what drove me every day. Like it was weird. It was unexplainable.
So how does that, going back to like what Zuckerberg said about having a 20, 40-year plan, how has that changed your calculus, how you think about the future? In your next phase after football, your kids are getting older now. That's what I struggle with. That's why I disagree with Ravi's point that like you're really good at long-term planning, and I'm like I'm not. I'm day to day here. I did not think I was doing a podcast 4 months ago, and here we are, blue guys with fucking t-shirts on. All right, here we
have t-shirts on. One of us is wearing a fucking polo. That's right.
You violate the fucking t-shirt rule every episode.
Alex, he might maybe this might be an ongoing fine for Battier. It's a little bit of like he's actually kind of going against the culture.
I'm totally the t-shirt culture for all our listeners. We have a strong t-shirt culture.
I'm 46 years old. All right, I'm old enough to be your fathers.
Man,
responsible and
Well, I want Alex to answer your question. I'm going to register my disagreement, and I'm going to come back to Shane on your sort of like, you're not long term. I'm going to give my impassioned plea for why that's a dumb analysis. But go ahead, Alex.
No, so I mean, obviously sports are weird because our careers are so front loaded, right? Every other career is back loaded. Like you put in the time and you grow, and then like your whole earning arc, and obviously as you move and ascend up the.
I'm still in ascension, guys.
You know what I'm saying? Like Shane and I are Blockbuster, baby. It's fucking over. You know what I'm saying? Like we got replaced, and so we're pivoting, right? We got like what's next? Again, speaking of what's next, and I mean, I've got a few different things like we obviously all talked about what family means to us, so I don't want to dive into that. But I mean, I'm a broadcaster. I work at a unique venture firm, and now I'm a podcaster. So know a little bit of it. I've got some straws in the drink, but like you got to at some point you got to fucking pick one and roll. And like what motivates you? And this goes to like obviously Ravi's point, which is obviously so important in all this. Like what motivates you? It's got to be something hard and interesting, and
Yeah, but see, this is where I just look, and I don't know what it's like to have had the chapter you guys had, and then the feeling you have now. Okay, so like I don't know what that's like, but I think that like I actually think that the thing that you're both, or Shane, you're certainly I disagree with you on this. The only thing you can actually do is like create stimuli in your life that then create opportunities. So all you have to do is like be in the mix. Right. What you learn is if you're in the mix, then interesting things happen. Right. And so for me, my point of view is like, you don't actually need to know what it is 10 or 20 years from now. Right. What you do have to do is be active and hardworking and learning oriented. This is why, like, I literally wrote this thing like a few months ago called Getting Better at Getting Better. And the entire fucking purpose of it is like the only thing you can really do is like get good at getting better. Right. If you're not fast at learning something, get faster at learning it. And what you want to do is like improve more quickly, And so for me, the thing that I say is like, I don't know what your guys' next chips will be. I do know that you have to decide to play in the game, which you guys are, and then be open-minded to stuff like you were on this stupid fucking podcast. But the point of like, no, I'll try it. Let's see what happens. Let's see what adventures come. That's the whole point.
That requires very little ego.
Yes.
And I think that goes back to even like the Zuckerberg thing. Like you have to check your ego. Facebook is my baby, but I got to be able to move on from it. Yeah. And so Steve Young always told me this, like, and this is what I think people also makes Shane and I's like career arcs unique. that if you chose, so as Shane and I have, to both move on from our sports, right? Like I'm not coaching professionally.
Yeah.
I'm not a GM professionally.
Yes.
Like I've decided to go down a different avenue.
Yes.
That you are talking about, like 25 to 30 years of experience at the fucking highest level.
Yeah.
And building that up.
Yeah.
And that has a value,
Yeah.
like a potentially a lot of value. And you're just deciding to just throw it away.
Yeah.
Like, because it doesn't necessarily, especially that technical information, doesn't have any really carryover to much else. And so you have to check your ego. And Steve Young would always talk about this. Like you are now the dumbest guy in the room. You went from being potentially the smartest guy in the room. Like you're the dumbest guy. You don't know anything. And you have to humble yourself to do that. And I think to even have a curious mindset of getting better, requires that. And so you have to check your ego. You have to humble yourself. And I don't think some people, it's hard to do.
Also, dude, here's the thing. This is the inevitability of it. If you didn't do that now, let's say you guys both stayed in your respective sports. One, you'd be bored. Both of you with your personalities, you'd both be bored. But the other thing that will happen is when you're 60 or whatever the age is, when you would leave it, you'd be in the same situation that you were in a couple of years ago. Like, man, what do I do now? And so the thing that happens when you like get out of it sooner, in my opinion, is like you just have to face those same things. And it's like when you did the interview with Aaron Rodgers the other day, and he was like, dude, the real lesson when you get injured is like the world moves on without you, right? Like the game keeps going.
Yep.
And you think it stops, it doesn't. That's the life lesson. Like I have that. Everybody has that, which is like, dude, like what am I going to do knowing that the world moves on without me? Right? What am I going to do when these jobs move on without me? Well, what am I going to be about? What am I going to go do? And I think that's the point that you guys have like embraced. And I guess I think that like the big thing, it's crazy. I actually think you need this combination. I'm all about these combinations, but you need this combination of like long-term confidence, like I'll figure it out. Right. But short-term humility of like, you know what? It's okay if I'm the dumbest one in the room. Right. But you, in the long term, the only thing you know is like, yeah, I'll figure it out. I'll put myself, and if I fail, I fail, but I'll figure it out. I actually think that's like the human combo that's necessary. Shane, have I convinced you that you're long-term oriented yet?
Sure. Yes. Where can I find your readings for my mom and our wives and all of our subscribers
on our email list, Shane.
Our long email list. Where can we read about your writings, your musings?
Oh, my readings. Oh man, yes. Yeah. Oh, I didn't know what you were talking.
I'm trying to pub you here.
I love it. I really appreciate it. Alex has been trying to have those be prompts for the episodes, and I've been
They're fucking awesome. They're awesome.
They are. Where can I find them?
You can find them at rkg.blog. If you know my initials, RKG, and you know that it's a blog, rkg.blog, you can find all of the musings that I have. And, it's like crazy. The crazy thing is like, I hate writing. And the only reason I wrote was because I was afraid my kids were going to avoid doing hard things, because like, I just thought that like, there's like the natural laziness or whatever that some people have. And I certainly have. And I was like, man, if my kids inherit that from me, I will be so ashamed because like Avni's not like that. And so I was like, I have to demonstrate that I do stuff I don't like. So the only reason I write on the internet, which like makes me like shudder anyway, is because I wanted to tell them like dad hates writing. Dad hates sharing his writing publicly. I don't even like writing memos at Sequoia, right? I was like, but I have to be able to tell them I do stuff I don't like. So which is why I started writing. And now it's like, I only write like once every 3 months, but at least it's there. And like, it allows me to have some credibility with them to be like, yeah, do the thing you don't like. You might be surprised. I think, Alex, the most interesting part of today has been your just kind of the deeper look at like why it mattered that you set the goal. Like I don't think I really knew that it was more about like getting your life to be back. I do think, Shane, that your thought though, it made me think of one funny thing and one not funny thing. The funny thing is there was this guy who was on some hedge fund guy who was like a billionaire, was on like some TV show, and he was getting interviewed, and he was like worth a couple $1 billion and he's still grinding. And the interviewer was like, you're worth $2 billion and you're still working really hard, man. Like, how do you keep going? Like, if I had gotten to be worth like $200 million, I would not have kept going. And the hedge fund guy was like, that's why he'll never be worth $2 billion. Like, like a pretty mean
Totally.
response. But I suspect, Shane, that like, I don't know. I suspect if you had a situation like Alex's, I think it's more of a question of how I'd react. I suspect you'd react more like Alex, just like set the bar super high, work really hard, go and make it happen,
I like to think so.
No, a Carolina guy would. That's all I'm saying. I think a word that, like, for me, as we've like kind of obviously talked this out a little bit, that like comes to mind, and I think in this, that you have to have, and it's easier said than done, just because of our human nature, though, is like a humility is a part of this, right? Like, and I think even being okay to fail, like you have to humble yourself, right? Like a little bit, like, fuck yeah, failure is normal, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like you have to, and you can't hold on to like any of your accomplishments or anything that you've done that tightly. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like you got to be able to let them go. And that, again, the whole idea of being flexible moving forward, right? Like, and going back to the coaching thing and even the Zuckerberg thing, like if you're Andy Reid, like, yeah, you've built these things, but they're fleeting. And so if you're not, you have to like humble yourself to like constantly be moving, right? Like, and changing and evolving and grow. And again, like that curious mindset comes from that.
You have to believe that that's the norm. You have to believe that that's like what's going to happen. Have you guys read, I think the author's name is Ryan Holiday. Have you read like
I love Ryan Holiday.
Ego is the Enemy? Do you know him,
Yes.
Alex?
I don't know him, but I read the Daily Stoic. I don't read it daily, unfortunately. I'd like to read it. I would love, my habits suck. It's something to aspire to. But the fucking Daily Stoic, who gave me the Daily Stoic?
No.
George.
Really?
Yeah, it's a great gift.
George Roberts.
Phenomenal
Coming
gift.
up every time.
But yeah, I love Ryan Holiday. Future guest.
Me
if he's
too.
listening.
Yeah. Ryan, if you're out there, if you're listening, you'd be extremely welcome on Glue Guys. Shane, have you read his stuff?
And James Clear, if you're out there too, get Alex a book, Atomic Habits.
I love that book as well, although I listened to that.
Actually,
I listened to it on audiobook. By the way, is it okay to say you've read a book if you've listened to it on audiobook?
Yeah, that counts. That counts. Especially if you're a former football player, it's fine.
Can you say you've read a book if you've listened to the Founders podcast on it?
No, that doesn't count. That doesn't count. That feels like a pretty straightforward.
Just a shout out to Senra.